Filter-Free Radio with Jacob Dean and Skeptical Scott. It's a dirty job, but someone's got to do it. Radio or not, and filterfreeradio.com. This is Occuthon 2011. Voices united for the 99%. 24 hours of internet radio to benefit local Occupy charities across the nation. Occuthon.com. And now, your host, Jacob Dean.
Welcome back to Occuthon 2011. We are live broadcasting on Occuthon.com, syndicated by Free Speech TV, Blip TV, RadioOrNot.com, WKRP Radio. Yes, turkeys are flying, ladies and gentlemen. SoFloRadio.com, TalkRadio1.com, and also 97.9 FM, Voice of the Resistance. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Jacob Dean. I am host of Filter Free Radio on Radio or Not Monday nights. You can check out my website, filterfreeradio.com. I am also the associate producer of the Tom Hartman program. You may have heard of it. And we're coming to you live from Washington, D.C. This is my last hour on Occuthon Live. I, of course, will be sticking around here in the studio for the remainder of the program. We'll be taking your calls live on our 1-800-866 number. But I'm rambling because I want to get right to our guest here, and I am so excited to speak with him. On the line with us is Jason Leopold from truthout.com.
.org.
Or no, excuse me. .org. Truthout.org. My apologies.
Yes,
I keep getting the Truth Out and the Truth Dig.
Truthdig.com.
I get them mixed up every time. Jason is the deputy managing editor at Truth Out. He's written stories on, we were just talking about the environment, he's written stories on BP, Enron, California energy crisis, Bush administration's torture policies. His pieces have been published in Asia Times, the Los Angeles Times, the Wall Street Journal, CBS Market Watch, The Nation, and many more. He's also written about foreign and domestic policy online for publications such as Alternate, Counterpunch, Common Dreams. The list goes on. Huffington Post, the Raw Story. It is my pleasure, my honor, and my privilege to welcome to Occuthon 2011 Mr. Jason Leopold. Jason, thank you so much for joining us, bud.
Great to be with you, Jacob. Thanks so much for having me on the show.
Oh, it's my pleasure, my pleasure. I want to direct everyone again to the Truth Out website where you can read Jason's most recent works. Jason, can you share with our listeners just a brief little bit about yourself, and in case anyone out there isn't familiar with yourself or anything that I might have left out in that bio?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I'm sure that many people have a different impression of who I am. I'm an investigative journalist. I've been in the journalism business, if you will, for about 15 years. I'm also the author of a memoir called News Junkie, which spent some time on the LA Times bestseller list. And for for the past 5 years, I've been covering counterterrorism and intelligence, with a main focus on the Bush administration's torture policies and torture policies in general, and issues with Guantanamo that continue to dog us, as well as working on BP, believe it or not. That's a sort of a very strange one to have there, but I've done a lot of work on BP and the company's terrible track record with regard to safety integrity.
Yeah, and it's just we kind of have two or three different Americas, or at least two or three different judicial systems where corporations who kill people just pay a small fee and go right on with business as usual. But
that's called outsourcing.
With BP, by the way, just on a side note, they just won. I think it's about $112 million. I could be off the number a bit, but they just won a brand new lease to drill in the Gulf. That was, I think it was awarded to them actually on Monday. The sale of some Gulf drilling leases out there, and this company that has been referred to by a former EPA official as a serial environmental killer, and we just gave them another drilling license.
And speaking of environmental killers, there was a story I came across my wire yesterday or day before, something about the current Congress or the current Republicans are the, quote, worst group of Congress in terms of the environment protection in the history or something like that. But
Henry Wax put that out.
Yeah.
And because he chairs, or he's that committee rather, the Energy Committee. Yeah, they have a terrible track record. I mean, it's getting worse. I mean, if you even look back to, just the early days of Bush, there were, believe it or not, they were actually, as much as they were loosening the rules with regard to, for example, power plants and emissions, it's as bad as things are right now.
And if we can, just for a minute, I want to kind of shift gears and talk about your latest article, Jason, over at Truthout, titled "Obama's Twisted Version of American Exceptionalism." And actually, my co-host and playing producer today on Occuthon, Scott, brought this to my attention, and
it's an excellent article, man. I love it.
Absolutely brilliant.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, and it's an article that, unfortunately, I'm going to say that people have reacted somewhat negatively to it, and it's very clear to me why they're reacting to it. They're looking at the headline. They're not reading the article, so they're reacting to the headline. And these are people who just fall into locks with the president, and that the president can do no wrong. That the administration can do no wrong. And what I tried to put together here in this story, and this was published shortly before the Senate passed the National Defense Authorization Act on Thursday. And for the past 3 years, this administration has held itself out as champions of human rights. And I tried to show, and I think I succeeded, that they have they're hypocritical. It's this exceptionalism that I talked about in the article with regards to its record on human rights and a focus on, for example, indefinite detention, which is something that has come up, obviously, with regard to the National Defense Authorization Act. So on one hand, we have Congress that is the Congress that's out there passing a bill that would make indefinite detention the law of the land. And we have a president who has signaled that he will sign that. He will sign that bill. He will enshrine indefinite detention into U.S. law. But as early as Wednesday, the State Department had announced that they implemented sanctions against 2 Iranian officials for acts that took place during the disputed presidential election in 2009 against citizens of Iran, and some of those acts included indefinite detention. Indefinite detention is a human rights issue, and that it has not been spoken about in those terms. And we condemn other countries routinely when they indefinitely detain individuals for whatever the allegations are. We refer to that as a human rights abuse. Yet we do not apply that to ourselves. We're great at speaking. We're not great at. We're terrible at practicing what we preach.
Amen.
Yeah. One of the things I think
follow through.
Yeah, one of the things I think you bring to light in your article, and I think it's worth mentioning, is that we are an empire. The military-industrial complex that Eisenhower has warned us about now runs much of our country, and certainly the budget. I mean, if they're able to pass this kind of a bill with ease, and yet we cannot get a jobs bill or any kind of bill to help that half of American population who's now living at or near or below poverty, I think it really says a lot for how corrupt our government has become, and I'm wondering if you could speak to that.
It certainly has, and it's, what's striking to me, particularly right now in this current climate. And let's just, for example, on this bill. This bill if you read it, it's more or less kind of expands the wars that we're waging. So that certainly goes to what you're talking about this this military industrial complex is not by any means reduce the number of wars. Arguably it would expand it. So the problem here that I see is that there's a lot of fear-mongering going on, more so in some respects than we did see during the Bush years. But yet people seem to be much more willing to accept it right now. I'm not sure if it's because of who is in the White House or people simply fear that if they were to speak out about this, that it would reflect poorly on the administration, and I do believe that is partial. That's partially the reason. Yeah. But the fear mongering. I mean, if you just paid attention to what Lindsey Graham was saying, yep. And various lawmakers were saying as they were getting ready to pass this bill, I mean, it truly took me back to the time when we were talking about when Congress was talking about the Patriot Act. It was that type of fear-mongering, and people were they truly were outraged. Perhaps there's some fatigue right now, but this is part of a larger story that I think that people are just unwilling to look at. Yep. And it does expand that military-industrial complex. The measures sort of help fit in with this police state that we currently find ourselves in. Everything is looked at through a political lens. So when you look at these things through the lens of being a Democrat or a Republican, it's very difficult to see the bigger picture and what the problems are.
Absolutely. If you're just joining us, we're speaking with Jason Leopold of truthout.org, a brilliant editor, reporter, investigative journalist. And Jason's most recent article, which you can read at Truthout, titled Obama's Twisted Version of American Exceptionalism. I want to read a quick piece in here that I love from your article, Jason. You write, Obama spoke to an Indonesian television reporter who basically asked him whether or not he was satisfied that the Indonesian government was taking proper steps to address past human rights abuses. And Obama said, and you write, Obama said, quote, "We have to acknowledge that those past human rights abuses existed, and we cannot go forward without looking backwards," end quote. Emphasis added. I would love for you to, riff on that for a second. And that's exactly what is, kind of a big picture solution in my mind, is you can't go forward without looking backwards. And with this new bill that's scaring the bejesus out of a lot of us. I mean, we've been taking calls on Tom Hartman's program for the last week, nonstop about this topic. And a lot of people are really nervous and upset about this. And it's a big deal. As Joe Biden would say, it's a BFD.
Yeah, it is a big deal, and people should be scared about it, and they should be concerned about it not only because they're wondering whether it affects them, whether the bill will somehow result in whatever activities they may be involved in, leading to their arrest. As I indicated, this is a human rights issue. They should be concerned for the fact that people in general would be, anyone suspected of terrorist activity, could be indefinitely detained. That should be a concern. It should be a concern because it's a human rights issue, not just because it may affect, some people here, U.S. citizens. And I just want to add, before I get into what you talked about with Obama's comments with the Indonesian reporter, that immediately after this bill was passed, and this has somewhat fallen underneath the radar, Dianne Feinstein introduced a bill called the Due Process Guarantee Act of 2011. And that bill would more or less protect U.S. citizens from being indefinitely detained. It has, I think, about maybe nearly a dozen sponsors. It's got 3 Republicans who are sponsoring it. But she introduced that immediately after the National Defense Authorization Act was passed because of the uncertainty in that bill as it pertained to U.S. citizens. So her proposal would more or less it's not a very lengthy bill. So if anyone's interested in reading it, I think they can find it on her website. But that's there's been a lot of debate as to the National Defense Authorization Act says it exempts American citizens. No, it actually doesn't say that explicitly. Perhaps for mandatory military detention, it refers to it. But anyway, I just wanted to point that out because it's important to note that that it came out immediately after the Defense Authorization Act. With regard to the comment that you just read in the story I had written on Thursday, that's an example of exceptionalism, and everyone I'm sure can recall when Obama was asked whether he would initiate an investigation, prosecution for the past human rights abuses that took place under Bush, and his comments were. His comment was that I would rather look forward, not backwards.
Right.
And here he is speaking to an Indonesian, television reporter whose government had initiated such an investigation, and Obama said it's important to look backwards. I mean, so how can anyone rationalize that or explain it? It's an example of that exceptionalism. And it's troubling. And it's troubling that we continue to turn a blind eye to the abuses that continue to take place at prisons in Afghanistan, for example, Bagram, that these issues, that these human rights abuses continue to take place under this administration. And so, again, it simply goes back to, don't want to criticize Obama. It's not criticizing just Obama. It's criticizing the policies.
Yes.
Criticizing the policies that allow it. And it's striking to me that, what people are willing to sort of ignore, compare that with, what happened under the Bush administration. And if I may jump back again now to the National Defense Authorization Act, I mean, eventually there will be a Republican president. I mean, let's just face it. That's just the way, things are, and history has shown us that eventually there will be one. These bills, these laws that are passed, they do pass over to the next president. So we don't know how that, president will use it, will implement it. And so people should be concerned, not just for now, but for the future. It's very troubling that there will be a signature on that, and it will be Obama, and he will become the first president to, as I indicated, put indefinite detention into law.
Yeah, Human Rights Watch, the ACLU have both come out against it, and unfortunately, it's really hypocritical.
Everyone is against it.
Yeah,
everyone is against it. Intelligence officials are against it.
You quote,
"This is political theater." That is what this is.
Jason, you quote Kenneth Roth, the executive director of Human Rights Watch, in the article, who said, if Obama signs this bill, he's going to go down in history as the president who enshrined indefinite detention without trial in U.S. law. And I want to really quick mention, before we let you go, Jason, that today is Bradley Manning Action Day, and there's a
BradleyManning.org.
BradleyManning.org. Let's not forget, we're talking about indefinite detention. We're talking about looking at the past in order to move forward. And I think Bradley Manning is at least, at the very minimum, worth mentioning and bringing back into the conversation.
Yeah, I mean, look, as far as Bradley Manning is concerned, certainly I can, opine about his treatment.
Sure.
I think that there's been, that is a subject of controversy as well with regard to, should he be treated as a whistleblower? Right. But look, there are laws out there. If somebody leaked me classified documents and they, there's laws governing that, and it's difficult. First of all, the whistleblower protections are terrible. But with regard to Bradley Manning, he should have his day in court. And I think what happened in the 18 months prior is very troubling. In fact, as I indicated, I spoke to Juan Mendez, the UN Special Rapporteur for Torture, who he's been trying to see Bradley Manning, and he actually has a report coming out very soon about the treatment of Bradley Manning, and the U.S. government would not allow, the Pentagon would not allow the UN Special Rapporteur for Torture to have a confidential conversation with Bradley Manning. So there's a lot of troubling aspects to that case that took place prior to his hearing. I have to admit, I'm not an expert, and I don't have very strong opinions on it. I will say that I think what Manning revealed, if he revealed it, because let's face it, he's on trial. He has not been convicted of anything.
Right.
And I do want to point that out.
Yep.
He's only been convicted. If, in fact, he is one who did that, these are allegations. Yeah, there are a number of things that he did in terms of what he revealed that changed the narrative of what we know, particularly the entire global war on terror. That helped change the narrative, and I think that is very, very important.
And on that brilliant and well said note, I want to let you get back to your Saturday, Jason. Thank you so much for giving us a few minutes of your time on Occuthon.
My pleasure.
Ladies and gentlemen, Jason Leopold, please check out truthout.org. Read his pieces. Brilliant investigative journalist, Jason Leopold. Jason, thanks for your time, and keep up the good work, buddy.
Thanks, guys. Have a good one. I'll talk to you soon.
Okay,
Thanks,
we'll keep in touch.
Again, too.
Sounds great.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Jason. Ladies and gentlemen, Jason Leopold. Truthout.org. Truthout.org.
Looking for filters? Check your coffee maker. This is Filter Free Radio with Jacob Dean and Skeptical Scott. FilterFreeRadio.com. Get ready to suck down some grounds.
When I talk about resistance, I think we have to stand up now and carry out acts of nonviolent resistance.
Because the truth is, we do have power.
We live in revolutionary times, but the counter-revolution is winning.
Sounds like a case of the Mondays.
Live every Monday, 7 to 9 p.m. Eastern. Filter Free Radio.
This is my favorite show.
We have been given an opportunity to make a new beginning.
I think it's very important for us to start to build a culture of resistance, because what we're doing isn't working, clearly.
It's our job to very coldly assess reality and then figure out how to respond.
Your number one source for unfiltered truth, analysis, and solutions. FilterFreeRadio.com.